Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this very special evening that we have. Today, we are going to have a very special session. My name is Ashutosh, and today we are going to have a special question and answer round where we would have people asking questions about marriage. Okay, and these questions come from people who are a part of a program called as Awesome Husbands Hub. Okay, and we are going to answer the questions. And to answer the questions, today we have with us Coach Valerin Sequeria, who is popularly known as Coach Val. He has been in the field of, he's called as a love revival expert, and he has been working in this very new field of relationship science and has helped more than 1,000 men turn around their marriages. And he's the founder of Awesome Husbands Hub, which is a worldwide network where husbands believe that they can change their marriages around. And he has a very revolutionary way of uh, bringing back connection with the wife, and he's helping men turn their marriages around. So without much ado, I would ask Coach Val to take ahead with this session, and we are looking forward to answering a few questions that our members have asked. So Coach Val, over to you.
Thank you, Ashutosh. This is the series of things we are going to do for the coming weeks. This week it is going to be on a Friday, and next week onwards it's going to be on a Thursday. So welcome to each one of you who are here. So over to you. Shoot. What's your first question?
Okay, so the first question that we have is should there be fights to have a healthy marriage? Now, there's always this common notion that people have that you can't have a marriage without fights. And people go ahead, couples even go ahead to say that fights are an integral part of having a healthy relationship. So, that's a very interesting question. Over to you, Val. Could you answer this question? Should there be fights to have a healthy marriage?
Great question. Great question. You know, if you talk to people before marriage and if they are in love for quite some time, they would say this often that yesterday we had a fight, but it was very cute. It was a cute fight. And in fact, fights before marriage sometimes look very cute. But then we hardly realize that fights are the one which destroy marriages. It is like, if somebody is asking, saying that, you should have fights to have a healthy marriage, it's like saying something like, you should have some diseases in you to be healthy. That's not right, correct? So when we get married, of course, we're going to get married to somebody who is different from us. Those of you who are part of the community, you'd know this whole thing called Enneagram, where you understand your personality type and the other person's personality type. So we always marry somebody who is different from us with regard to our personality type. When we marry somebody who is different from us with regard to our personality type, then we are bound to have differences of opinion. Now, that is very healthy, by the way. Having differences of opinion is very healthy, because imagine how it creates a beautiful balance. Like, I'll give you an example of our own relationship. Like, Pallavi is somebody who'd like to spend, like to buy things for the house, for herself, for myself, and I'm the one who is little stingy. Now, what happens in this context? If we are fighting, we would be blaming each other for being that way. Now, that is unhealthy. That is really unhealthy, because it doesn't help us to move forward in life. It doesn't give us that support to move forward in life. I'm going to talk about it a little later, but let's come back to this. Now, imagine that we have different opinions about buying and not buying, and we have a way to communicate that, discuss that, talk about it, and then we come to a conclusion together. What happens in that situation? What happens in that situation is we are not fighting, because when we are fighting, a lot of energy is wasted. Imagine that in the morning you got up, you spend time in the morning fighting with your wife or your husband. Now your whole day is wasted. Your whole day is wasted. So coming back to this question of, should you just give me one moment? Okay, it's our dog. He just wants to be heard. All right. So what happens is, imagine that you have a fight in the morning and you waste the whole day. Would you like to do that? Would you like to waste a whole day? Or on the other side, you don't have fights, you have differences of opinion, and then you talk about it, you discuss about it, and at the end, you agree on things that are bigger than yourselves, and you give each other a give each other a big hug, and you go to bed together. What's better, fights or differences of opinion and then connecting with each other? So to answer your question, having we don't need fights in our marriage. What we need is differences of opinion, and we need skills to communicate those opinions without fights. So that's the answer to your question, Ashutosh. Over to you.
Wow, wow, wow. That's very, very nicely answered, Val. So you talked about how initial in the romance stage, we whatever fights that we have, we consider them as cute, but after marriage, the same kind of fights that we have due to the differences of opinions bring about a wear and tear of the relationship. And it's all about. It's not about. So we always consider that differences of opinions would always lead to fights, but it is more about how you deal with these differences of opinions, the art of communicating with each other when you have those differences, that rather than leading to a fight lead to a very enriching relationship. So, and yeah, so that's you gave a very right analogy over there, so well answered, Val, thanks for that. So yeah, we will move ahead with the to the next question that we have. And yeah, this also I find very interesting. How do I control myself when my wife criticizes me? So men have this question that when your wife is criticizing you, there are points where you feel that your wife is being unfair to you, that whatever that she's saying, criticizing, the quality that she's blaming about you is sometimes she's unfair, that she's wrong in what she's saying, or even at times when she's criticizing you for a certain quality, a bad quality, you also see the same bad quality in your wife, and you feel tempted to criticize her back, right? And how do you, in those moments, how do you control yourself, that you know that okay, the bad quality that she's criticizing me for is the same thing that even she does? And how do you really control, how do you really deal with this kind of a situation? So we would really like to know, Val.
Yes, this is a question um, which leads a little bit of depth. So let's dive deeper. The first thing to understand is this: no matter how right you are, no matter how wrong she is, as soon as you start being defensive when she criticizes, your marriage is over. Let me repeat that. No matter how wrong she is, no matter how right you are, as soon as you become defensive, things will only go downwards. So, what do? The first thing to do is to reflect on all that she is saying. Like, for example, she would say something like, you're spending too much time with your parents, you're buying too many things for your parents, you're not doing anything for me, you are not there for me, you spend too much time in the office. Now, if you look at it from your perspective, it looks like she's being unfair. She's really being unfair, which is not true. Which is not true. But when you go to her side and start looking at it from there and not listen to the words, because words are very deceptive, because your mind will say to you, like, I was late by half an hour. What's the big deal? It just happened that I didn't call her up. What's the big deal? What happens in an half an hour? But if you go deeper and you ask yourself, what did that make her feel? Because it's not easy to criticize. You have to get into that emotion, and the emotions that make a person to criticize at a deeper level are an emotion where the person feels that she's not important, an emotion where she feels that the other person is not there for her, an emotion where she feels that she's considered as a second class citizen, she's not important. So if you dig deeper, you'll understand that that's what she's trying to say. Now, what's the next thing? The next thing is you want her to stop criticizing, right? Do what makes her feel loved. Do makes her what makes her feel loved. Now, as soon as I say that, do what makes her feel loved, suddenly men feel that, oh, I'm asking them to compromise. Of course not. Of course not. The magic of doing what makes her feel loved, not doing what she says, but doing what makes her feel loved, will also make her to love you. And when she starts loving, she'll become less needy. She will be more loving, more caring, more understanding. And that's where you move from power struggle to mature love, that greater connection. So, in order to sum it up, let me say this. Let's say you go home and your wife is criticizing you. The first thing you do is take a pause. The second thing you do is go to her side, understand why she's doing it. The third thing is to start taking care of those deeper needs. Taking care of those deeper needs, and consistently and over a period of time, she'll stop criticizing. And when she stops criticizing, now you move to a place of amazing connection. Amazing connection. Over to you, Ashutosh.
Yeah. So again, well answered, Val. So what you said is that you go beyond that world where you see, where you're just looking at the words and you feel everything is unfair. But when you go beyond that world and into a zone that you're uncharted territory where you haven't never really seen things from her emotions perspective, you start understanding as to why she's being that way, why she's criticizing you. So just looking at the words, you may feel that, oh, this is so unfair. When you go beyond words and look at her emotions, we get to see that, a lot of things make sense. We understand her emotions and why uh, that thing is happening. And then when we realize this, we start fulfilling her emotional needs, and we keep doing it consistently. And you also explain how this is not a compromise, rather it is not a compromise, where you keep doing that and you'll get to see that she also starts doing reciprocating, which she starts caring for your emotional needs. She starts loving you back. So very well answered, Val. uh, yeah, I hope that triggers curiosities in many who are viewing this video over here. So fine, so we move on to the final question for the day that we have. And again, one more interesting question that we have: when to start talking about the primary emotions. So men always face this challenge that when they start connecting with their wife, and when they understand this difference between secondary emotions of anger, frustration, and primary emotions that are much deeper, of hurt, of feeling ashamed, of feeling let down, uh, when men actually start sharing their primary emotions, the wife always has this complaint that you are so self-centered, you just have to talk about yourself. Okay, and then you are like, okay, I this is so important, I should be sharing my primary emotions because that is what is going to bring about that emotional connection. But when do I start doing that? Because at the very initial stage of connection, you do that, and all that your wife has to say is that, oh, you're so self-centered, you just have to talk about yourself. So Val, please shed some light as to what is the point where we realize that, oh, I can start sharing my primary emotions now.
So, what is the time? What is the point that you can start sharing primary emotions? Just to reiterate, Ashutosh already mentioned, but I'm going to reiterate it. There are two kinds of emotions. The first ones are secondary emotions. Secondary emotions are also called as the emotions that we show it to others, like anger, irritation, frustration. We show it to other people. Now, there are deeper emotions that we don't show it. They are hidden behind these secondary emotions. So, what are deeper emotions? Like feeling left out, feeling unimportant, lonely, afraid. These are all primary emotions. Now, what happens? Because we are in a power struggle, because we have not been sharing our primary emotions, we have been totally disconnected. Now, when we are disconnected, both of us are feeling a great sense of primal panic. What is a primal panic? A feeling really panicked. So when we are in the presence of our spouse, both sides, we feel that we are in the enemy zone. There will be a missile which can come from anywhere. Now that kind of a feeling we have, and the primary goal of our being is to protect us. And now what happens is when I connect with my wife and I start sharing what I'm feeling, my wife feels that I'm self-centered. My wife feels that she doesn't want, I don't understand her. I don't understand her pain. I don't understand her struggles. I don't understand her challenges. So, what do I need to do first is to understand that she's in a primal panic. She's not, when our emotions go up, our intelligence goes down. So, she's not in a state of understanding my emotions at this moment. So the first phase of my journey is to help her understand that I understand her. So how do I do that? It is by sharing her primary emotions. That is, I understand that you're feeling lonely. I understand the reason why you did this is because this is how you felt. I understand that 3 years ago this happened. That would have made you feel this. And as soon as I say that, interestingly, surprisingly, my wife would say, "Oh, now you understand it. After all these years, after all these months." Now, that's not a bad thing. That's a compliment. Because at least she's saying that now you have changed. Now you're an amazing person. So when I start doing that, slowly, my wife feels that she is important. She's understood. And once she feels that she is understood, then she's willing to understand. So at that moment, I start sharing. What are the indicators of, what are the basic indicators? The indicators of the time we can share is where my wife is not criticizing you right now, criticizing me right now, where the conversation between us have pauses. The way we are talking is quite slow, rather than we're just going on and on and on. If I check my heartbeat, the heartbeat is quite relaxed, it's normal. When I look at my wife, she's not breathing heavily, her breathing is quite calm. So these are the body signs which tell me that it's time for sharing primary emotions. And having said that, I can also, what I can also do is check it with my wife. Is it okay if I share what I'm feeling? But I understand that you might not be in a state to listen to me because of the pain you are going through. See, I'm going to her side because I want her to come to my side eventually. So I'm saying that probably you might not be in a state to listen to it. If that's the way you feel, then it's okay. And let's say she says, yes, I want to listen. So what you do is you share your primary feeling. You do this. You start with her. This is the incident. The reason why you could have done it is this, but at the same time, I felt this way. But I understand. So what I'm doing is I'm going to her side, then I'm coming to my side, then I'm going to go to her side. So that she doesn't have any reason she doesn't have a reason to be defensive. She has a reason to listen. But watch the body language, watch the breathing, watch the pace of your conversation, and then ask permission. And then her side, your side, her side, your side. Your goal is not only to share primary emotions, your goal is to connect. When we connect at a deeper level, and that happens with sharing primary emotions from both sides, then all our hurts can be healed. We can look at the same situation in a new light, and we become from people who are fighting to people who are connected. Over to Yashtosh.
Wow, wow. Wonderful. So you very nicely told of how the first step to do is where you realize that your wife would not understand you. So you may share your primary emotions, and your wife would say that you are self-centered, and you might find that she's being so unfair. And but then the first step is realizing that okay, she's in a primal panic, and this is the stage where she'll just not understand whatever that I have to say, and you have to go and uh, understand her first, have that virtue of patience, first start understanding her. And when you start doing that, then you and understanding her is also about talking about her primary emotions first for a certain amount of time, being there, being on her side, talking about her primary emotions. And then when she feels heard, when she feels understood, she would start reciprocating and come to your side and start understanding you. And you also talked about this very crucial indicators, right, of how do you really realize that okay, she has actually started feeling understood, because that's the point where you can start sharing your own primary emotions as well. And then you talked about this wonderful conversation that you can have later on, where in any conversation you share your primary emotions and she shares her primary emotions, and that is that particular way of communicating with each other enriches the relationship. So yeah, thanks for that. I certainly believe that whatever that you talked about, all the questions, that the three questions that we had, the way you answered them are certainly acting as some food for thought for all the viewers out here. And yeah, so that's all that we have for this particular session over here. If you want to have your own questions on marriage to be aired on such videos, on such live videos, then you can also be a part of the Awesome Husbands Hub, because we take up questions of members who are a part of this particular program. So that's all that we have in this particular session. If you really liked this, then you can you can subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon, so that you get notifications for further such live videos that we have. And if you really like this question and answer format that we had over here, then you can also hit the like button. Before we end, we do have something special for you, where Val is going to share a special 30 minutes video on the topic of 3 secrets to bringing back love. All that you have to do is go to coachval.co, and you can watch this particular video, a special video for all of you. And yes, we are looking forward to having you next week on a Thursday with a few more questions. So thanks a lot for being there. Good night.